I never remember Herman ever talking and running anybody down. Not a word.
That's Gary's dad?
Gary's dad. Yep. He basically he was one of my fathers. You know, I was 2 when my dad died, and he had a house there on the home place, and John and Leona had a tent house there, and so basically I used to tell everybody I had 4 fathers and 3 mothers, or 4 brothers. I had 3 sisters, and my oldest sister is 93. There's so much changes, son, when I started driving and ran that there's no comparison. There's a load of posts on single axle Ford, loaded high. Lanthus Moore was with us, and he said, we're on our way. And I chained the tires, the axle, the wheels, the duals to a guardrail post and load binder, and we got up and unloaded the load so that traffic could go by, and then I took 2 load binders, and switched it back over. Then we reloaded half the load, and then we went up to Washington and sold them, went back and got the rest, and nobody stole 1 post.
What was the truck Uncle John and you had?
K5 International. You mean the one I wrecked?
You wrecked it?
I wrecked K5. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And anyway, when he got back, he was going to drag it off the road, and it had about probably 100 gallons of gasoline and the sparks, and caught fire and burned up.
How'd you wreck?
Walked into a curve and high load and tipped it over.
Wow.
I crawled out of a hole about that big around. I was in it long enough that the battery was right ahead of the seat under the floorboard.
Right.
And I was in it long enough that acid ate my pants out.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I drove a van with one of Hitler's armored car in Mercedes. It it weighed 16,000 pounds. The glass was inch and a half thick in the glass. And I was living in Adelanto, California, and this friend of mine came over and he said, we need you to drive a truck. And so on the spur of the moment, I took off and drove the truck. And I took it back to Pennsylvania, and we unloaded it and loaded a Russian car, a brand new Russian car, in. And we took it and showed it under the Police Association, Veterans of Foreign Wars, etc.
Did you tell him the story about dumping the load of logs on Grandpa Story's vehicle?
Oh yeah,
No, I hadn't heard that one.
we was hauling logs, and the airlines to the trailer snagged on a root and jerked them in two, and I didn't have any brakes, and I was coming downhill, and Brian and Edith Story were coming uphill in their pickup, and I turned and went up on the bank, and I was almost by him, and the load of logs went right on top of their pickup, and it had Brian pinned in it, and I ran back and laid on the hood and reached through the windshield and doubled the steering column up so we could get him out, but he was unhurt.
Oh, wow.
Could have killed him.
Yeah.
Could have killed him. And if they hadn't have been there,
See, I could have traded with their mom.
it was about 1,500 feet off, just like that, that I'd have went over, and I'd have wrecked.
Yeah.
Tell the story about the international pickup with the 392 in it.
Oh. Yeah, I put a Hemi in a 3/4 ton international pickup, and I had power brakes, and I could put my foot on the brake and step on the throttle, and it just sat there and spin the tires. Oh, I was on Castle Boulevard, and these kids come up, and sitting at the light in a '57 Chevy, rump, 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 rump. And so I put my foot on the brake, started feeding the fuel to it, and it started burning rubber, and this kid turned and looked. I'll tell you what, that 392 would put you down the road.
Yeah.
I had a Super Wasp.
Yeah, the Super Wasp.
I had a Super 6 first, 4-door. That's one that had gotten stolen, and they had run it in the New York Canal upside down, and the top of the body was bent in, and I bought it and pushed it out, kept hammering on it till it was smooth, and then I traded that in and got a brand new 53. The Super 6 was a 49, and I got a brand new 53 Super Wasp 2-door.
That was when you were drag racing?
Yeah, I had the transmission all screwed up before I got through Chicago. I had a new Hudson Super Wasp Twin H carburetors, and we were on our way home.
But that was before she got there.
And
My turn.
I
Which way
looked
was
in
it
the
going?
mirror and I seen this light going like that. And so I wanted to see how fast it was going. And I got to 110 and he went by me.
Who did?
The train did.
Oh.
He had been going 130, 40 miles an hour. Straight stretch there in Nebraska.
Yeah.
Kenny and I used to drag race all the time. And so did Dan. Dan had a 1953 Dodge, and Kenny had a Super 88 Oldsmobile, and I had this Hudson with a 3-speed and an overdrive, and we used to drag race all the time.
Well, didn't you come up behind him at a railroad crossing and lay on the air horn
Oh,
and the train?
one Sabbath we were on, I had an air horn on pickup, and we were going up Front Street, and I was following Kenny and Betty. We were going down to the park for lunch after church, and I got up behind Kenny and I laid on the air horn, and the guy in front of him thought the train was coming, and he slammed the brakes on, and Kenny almost rear-ended him. I was living with Paul and Ella, and he said, let's go out and get some watermelons. And Dan and David were on the home place. So we drove down the road, and Ella drove, let us out. We went out in the field, and we had a couple of watermelons apiece coming to the road. And this voice says, "Halt!" It's Dan. And then when he got up to see who it was, and he said, "Oh, you guys." And David then recognized our voice, and he snuck home. A lot of things has happened in my life, and I look back. No, really, I've had an awful good life. I've had an awful good life. I've done a lot of things.